A Yorkshire Childhood, Chapter 21. Stepping Stones. He didn't want to do it, but when they started throwing stones at him and shouting obscenities, he had no choice. It wasn't as cold as he expected, and he slowly waded into the centre of the river. He was worried about falling over as the floor was littered with rocks and pebbles, and maybe even old bicycles to get tangled up in. The older boy fell about laughing at his predicament and the worried look on his face. Josh was not one to get angry easily, but for once he allowed himself to. His anger shot up like a thermometer, and this spurred him on to dive into the water and head for the river bank. He was relieved not to be wearing a coat and socks to weigh him down. Just as he was swimming to the sandy bank, a large and ugly rat popped out of its hole and plopped into the water. This sent visions of fear through him. He was terrified of rats, and the thought of one swimming up to him filled him with horror. The river bank was only 10 yards away, and he couldn't wait to get to the other side, and he redoubled his efforts. Then another large rat appeared and plopped into the water. This was too much for him. He swam more forcibly to the other side, and with each stroke he imagined the rat circling and swimming beneath him. He was glad that the boys couldn't see the panic on his face, or they would have been in hysterics. He finally got to the river bank, but to his horror, he found that it was slipping and he couldn't climb up it. Each time more wet sand fell away and he fell heavily into the water. Now he was starting to panic. He didn't want another hungry looking rat to fall into the water. The boys were still shouting at him, but this time they must have been worried by his plight, and they began shouting words of encouragement and willing him to climb the river bank as he sank further. Just was becoming more tired, and the possibility of drowning had entered his mind. More sand fell on his head and face, and the bank was crumbling to the touch. Once again he fell into the water. His clothes were weighing him down like an anchor, and he was starting to panic. He was wondering how Tom would react if he didn't arrive home. Just as his clothes were starting to pull him under the freezing water, a hand reached out to him unexpectedly, and he grabbed it and was hoisted out of the river, over the crumbling bank to safety. To Josh's surprise, it was the tallest and toughest one of the bunch.